Oh yes, we're talking about Meguna, because he's actually quite the unique phenomenon. What's up guys, I'm Pencil here, and here we are to do a breakdown slash discussion on what the best statistic, the best stat, the best portion of Meguna, the strongest sorcerer of all time in the body of Megami Fushiguro. What is his best stat? Is it his power? Is it his speed? Is it his durability? Is it even possibly his hacks? There are so many questions that we need to answer today, and oh precious little time. So let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Heading me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up guys, that guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me, and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Meguna is interesting, mainly because he's a variation of Ryomen Sukuna, but he's very specifically one of 3 variations of Ryomen Sukuna who acts very differently than the other 3. I say the other 3, really the other 2. The 3 main variations of Sukuna, who may get all their own versions of this best stat, because I do think, well, maybe not one. Actually, no, I think technically all 3 do have their own different best stat out of power, speed, durability, and hacks. But with that being the case, they're all unique in their fighting styles, how they approach battles, and what their main goals are at the time when they approach those battles. Yuji-kuna, Meguna, and True Form Sukuna are all completely different characters in terms of how they fight, how they react to certain fights, and how they react to certain phenomena, and what stat exemplifies themselves the best when they're using it. And Meguna feels like the most pertinent to cover, considering he's the most unique variation, at least in my opinion. Yuji-kuna and main Heian Body Sukuna, they use the same curse technique in the same kind of fashion, in the same kind of way. It's just that how they use it and what they end up using and how it reacts to the rest of the verse around them at the time varies enough that their best stat also differentiates itself. Meanwhile, Meguna is a very unique case. But of course, the question really becomes, fine, he's a unique case, but what's his best stat? Why must he be so unique that he stands apart from his other variations? What's so special about the strongest sorcerer in the body of a 10 Shadows wielder? Well, we can get to that, but first, let me tell you what his best stat is not. It's power. It's like, I'm not, once again, I'll make a separate video talking about his worst stat, because I think it is a hot debate between power and speed. Both of those stats for Meguna are kind of, it's weird to say, because once again, I always got to preface this when I'm talking about the god tiers. Notably, in some other characters, when I do their best stat and worst stat videos, I don't necessarily have to talk about it too heavily, because it's pretty commonly agreed upon, but I feel like whenever I talk about the god tiers, aka your Gojos and your Sukunas, and even some of the high tiers, like your Yutas and your Yujis, or some of the mid tiers, even like your, not really, not the mid tiers, but with it being the case, when I talk about them, I feel like I always have to sprinkle this on top. When I say Meguna's power and speed don't really matter, I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying that they aren't the most relevant thing when it comes to the conversation of what the best or worst is, if you know what I'm talking about. Mainly because it's not like Meguna's power is poor, but it just doesn't seem to do all too much on its own. And not that Meguna's speed is poor. In fact, we have beautiful counter evidence to that fact, but it's also just not the main debate point, the main discussion point. For Meguna's best stat, it really is one of 2 things. It's the hacks, and it's the durability. So, let's cover the easier one first. Sukuna, when in the body of Megumi Fushiguro's, hacks are essentially the highlight point. Because note, Meguna is a very, very temporary form. It exists for a decent chunk of the narrative, but not too long. He exists for like 3 fights, and one of those fights, he's being suppressed by Megami, aka the Maki and Yuji fight, meaning he can't fight to his full potency. The other fight, he's drastically holding back, in terms of like, making sure that Yorozu dies specifically to the 10 Shadows. And then the other fight, he's in like the worst physical state ever, and thus I feel like it's hard to count. So the main showing we do have for Meguna and his durability really does come from the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, and honestly, the hacks are the more prescient one during this battle. The main showcase is kind of naturally going to be the hacks. Now, of course, the most premier hacks, the hacks that stands on top, the one that stands unique, at least for the first part of the battle, from what we knew, was naturally his domain expansion. Of course, his domain expansion is an application of Shrine, which is an application of his curse technique, which is an application of slashing things. Which doesn't sound too hacks-based until you remember that the slashing things is cleave, which, you know, auto-adjusts to your cursed energy reinforcement to cleave you through. And notably, I'll be honest, it isn't the most effective. I mean, it is. Notably, Satoru Gojo, whenever he's being cleaved apart, doesn't really have the option to do much else. His RCT is consistently on max. He's forced to either hold the pose for Falling Blossom Emotion, and or in the previous chapter, he's pretty much forced to do Symbol Domain in order to make sure he can even, like, survive. Like, he does Symbol Domain in order to make sure he can heal off, but then the moment Symbol Domain breaks down because of Malevolent Shrine, which is a good counterpiece for Malevolent Shrine, it kind of just leaves Gojo in the same spot. So Malevolent Shrine locks him down, but in terms of real permanent damage, it doesn't do too much. And of course, this is compounded with the fact that Sukuna doesn't treat Malevolent Shrine all too seriously, because at this point, he isn't focusing on actually executing Satoru Gojo. He's forcing on removing the trump card that is Unlimited Void. It's why he kind of just stands there and lets Gojo do stuff like Symbol Domain, or in 227, like Flowing Blossom Emotion. He could have easily attacked numerous times here, but he just doesn't. He's kind of just vibing. Kind of big chillin'. And thusly, Malevolent Shrine doesn't necessarily get its due credit, but it is still very, very important on the hacks front. Even when Gojo fundamentally breaks the laws of reality to a certain degree, like, that's what they say he does when he goes for the Giga Small Ball. Ultimately, by doing this, he's sort of cheating space by using the principle he learned in the prison realm, and overwhelming space by compressing it down a whole bunch in order to counter Malevolent Shrine. Malevolent Shrine, Sukuna's hacks, is still so undeniably strong that it still shatters Small Ball. Notably, at the time period when Gojo and Sukuna are running relatively equal, when Sukuna's not using Domain Amp. So, hypothetically, Malevolent Shrine still is the perfect dancer. It still is juicy. It still is scribbly up. It still is amazing. And notably, that's just one side of his hacks that every other variation of him has. You know, the real star of the show. The real hacks that everyone's been waiting for. The real thing that makes people undeniably say that for Meguna, his peak point, his best point, his top point, is gotta be his hacks. Yeah, it's a certain big fella. You know him, you love him, you fear him, you hate him, you glaze him. It's Big Raga, the op stop. Yeah. This is what kind of makes it hard to argue otherwise. Because if we're talking logistically, durability has a basis of an argument solely for the fact that it is what allowed Big Raga to persist in the way that he did. Notably, Big Raga would not be able to pop out and pop Unlimited Void like a soap bubble if it wasn't for Sukuna's raw durability. Like, that man is bulky to the extreme. Gojo only does extreme damage to him when he's blue amping himself and shoving himself straight into Sukuna's chest, or blasting him point blank in the face with reds. And even then, Sukuna, He nibbles on them bad boys pretty darn well. Like, for a full output reverse curse technique red directly to the face, which is what Sukuna is pretty much forced to tank, he does eat it. Like, look at the distance. Look at legitimately, the distance between the red and Sukuna's face is big. But, like, this big. So, thusly, that full output red to the face, the fact that Sukuna tanks it with only a bit of his face turned off, or burned off, is kinda crazy. The fact that he opens up, admittedly, presumably from a weaker Hollow Purple, since it was launched from 200 meters, but the fact that he only lost 2 arms from a Hollow Purple that was maxed up to double its output in efficiency and potency thanks to Utsuhime, that's kinda crazy. His durability is kinda like that. He's kinda thick, jacked, and juicy. But ultimately, his durability feeds into it. It feeds into the only individual, the almighty, the thick, the juicy, the scrumdiddlyumptious, legendary, amazing, juicy General King. My sweet, scrumdiddlyumptious, muscle-bound, Dharma-wielding king, Big Raga. And now, personally, you're looking at a guy who believes Gojo in 236. I personally don't think Sukuna needed the 10 Shadows to beat Gojo. I don't think so. I think Meguna can pull out a dub with Malevolent Shrine, DA, and himself, if he actually wanted to play it smart. He didn't do that, though. If we're going on what Meguna relied on the most, what he used the most, what a big chunk of his battle plan was based around of, yeah, it's Big Raga, one of his hacks, and even me talking about what I think Meguna could use in order to make sure that he would win anyway, even without Big Raga, even without Spatial Slash, even without those developments. It's more hacks. I think he needs DA, Malevolent Shrine, and more. Not really. It's DA, Malevolent Shrine, like, the right mentality. But that's about it. Those are hacks. DA turns off other curse techniques. And Malevolent Shrine is a hack, no matter how simple in concept that it may be. And of course, Big Raga is Big Raga. He's hacks. Sure, he's physical hacks, as in like a massive Shikigami, but he still hacks. So yeah, Meguna, he's the chief hacks beast, at least in my opinion. Despite other variations of Sukuna also being not necessarily reliant on their hacks, but still having very, very strong, very, very dangerous, very, very devious hacks that we'll talk about in other videos, I think Meguna is the pinnacle of the hacks beast, in spite of how impressive his durability is. In spite of how, not lacking, but how neutral his power seems to be, how neutral his speed seems to be. It is the hacks. It's what he clearly went out of his way to utilize the most, in combination with his durability in order to fuel the hacks. And it's to the point where ultimately he's willing to trade hacks for hacks. Like every single time he decides to turn Mahoraga's wheel off, it's to what? Oh, to use domain amplification. Technique nullification. Which is just another hacks. Like, he goes out of his way to switch between them because they kind of facilitate this entire battle. If you were to strip away Malevolent Shrine, I know it sounds so stupid, like, oh, you're going to strip away the powers of the character? Yeah! If you were to strip away Malevolent Shrine on its own, or the 10 Shadows on its own, and make Sukuna fight the exact same way, he couldn't. If he just had DA, only DA, he's not winning. He needs Malevolent Shrine, another variation of hacks. DA itself, he needs that. It's a hacks. He needs the 10 Shadows, it's a hack. Like, once again, all of his big bad moves are hacks based. We see other variations of Sukuna, they just pummel people. They just slam people through buildings. They do crazy things. But Sukuna, at least Meguna, he is very much a hacks-based fighter all around. Whether it be domain implication, whether it be Malevolent Shrine, whether it be Cleave and Dismantle, whether it be Spatial Slash, whether it be Big Raga and Ahito. He is a hacks-based fighter. And notably, it feels weird to say that because of how much of a showing of this battle against his durability. Like, notably, this punch right here is arguably the hardest in the series. Like, pound for pound, bam for bam. If we saw Ryu or Yuki hit a Black Flash, then maybe I'd be like, But considering this is a blue, empowered by a red backshot into a Black Flash, which Sukuna got launched into, and Gojo likely launched himself forward towards. This has to be the hardest punch in the series, I'd say next to Yuki's, but even then, I think if Kenjaku were to get hit by this punch, he wouldn't just lose his arms and have his neck bent. He'd straight up have his head knocked off. He'd probably have his head knocked off by a regular blue punch. Not to talk about a Black Flash one. So Meguna's durability is massive. Massive. It's a massive play into his hacks, right? I agree. But even still, I feel like durability is the strong suit of another one of the Sukunas. Another variation of them. Rather than this one, just because of how important the hacks were to this plan. Even the Yorozu fight, where I went out of my way to kind of explain that, hey, realistically, if we're talking honestly, he was holding back a whole bunch. Why was he holding back? So you could use what to break Yorozu and Megami Soul? Oh yeah, the 10 Shadows. Hacks. So like, he's just a hacks beast, which is weird. It's weird because like, you mainly think of Satoru Gojo as the hacks beast in this fight, but no, Sukuna's up there too. He's up there too. He's behind Satoru Gojo, at least in terms of hacks usage, in my opinion, based on how much regular fighting he does. But even still, that man's a hacks beast. And even in his final encounter, right? His final encounter with Kashimo, he really shows off his durability more. But notably, Kashimo lands like what? 2 hits? He gets these 2 punches in, and then 1 blast, and then Meguna's like, I'm tired of this. Let me dodge everything, take 1 more hit, and then I'll incarnate. So, durability, it's definitely number 2. If you had to ask me to rank them, I'd say durability's number 2 on Meguna's stat sheet. Like, it's a stat that's very highly maxed. He relies on it a whole lot to feed into number 1. But number 1, especially based on how he fought, is a little bit too critical. And based on how he would win. While I'm confident in saying that Meguna, according to his own opinion and according to possibly Satoru Gojo's, I do agree the possibility of Ryomen Sukuna beating Satoru Gojo is possible without the use of the 10 channel specifically. DA would have to come into play. Malevolent Shrine would have to come into play. Regular Cleaving, one way or another, all that needs to come into play, and all of those are hacks. It's what Meguna relies on the most. And that's fine. Notably, I do think the weakest in terms of like every other stat, Meguna or Sukuna relying on the one thing that's most rare to him, aka his variety of hacks, makes sense. At least in my opinion, physically, Meguna's kind of booty meat. Remember, Megami's for the most part kind of just a dude. He didn't inherit much physical resistance from his father or anything of the Heavenly Restriction kind. He's not like Yuji, who was fundamentally built to be a stronger than average being. And he's not like Sukuna, built to be the perfect sorcerer. He's just a 15-year-old dude or I believe 16 by the time of the Shinjuku Showdown, but 16-year-old. So yeah, his physicals aren't going to be the most impressive. His raw power isn't going to be the most impressive. His speed is going to be fine because he has Ryomen Sukuna backing it with all the stats and stuff like that. Ultimately, Yuji Kuna would be stronger and faster just based on how we know reinforcement works. True Form Sukuna would be stronger and faster just based on how we know reinforcement works. So it makes sense that the one thing that Sukuna has the most of, or Meguna has the most of in comparison to every other variation of Sukuna, would be the thing that defines him. Would be the stat that he's known for, would be the stat that he and he alone stands supreme in. The hacks. I know some Gojo fans are going to be like, there we go, we got it, Pencil Man. And yes, you do. So, with that being the case, what do you guys think? Do you think Meguna is defined by something else? Do you think he, like the other Sukunas, may be superior in other types of stats that may be more unique or less unique to him? And maybe I'm overrating his reliance on hacks in order to defeat the strongest source of the modern day Satoru Gojo? Or do you guys agree? And ultimately think that, yeah, hacks kind of has to be the Sukuna's best stat, because what else would it be? Other than, like, durability. Come on now, Pencil Man. Please let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave beast hacks. Like, instead of hacks beast, leave beast hacks in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure the notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon below where you can support me for as low as $1 things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks will include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, ad-free variations of the live videos, and if you become a $25 patron or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 20 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Zera, Greyhound, Eternal Flame, NMA, Real Rare, Redwolf 4765, Paris Arnold, Astro, and Brandon Payne. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons, Zombie Hunter, Sean, Midnight Lord 21, King, Meliodas, Kevin, Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 members, Autumn, Mornings Lazo, and Fine. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 members, Robbie Uchiha, Jay Warrior, and AZ Void. And I'd like to give a big ol' thank you to our $10 patrons, Michael Williamson, Joaquin Munoz, and Idem Okami. And I'd like to give a final gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.